Heracles in the Greek myth,
Yes.
in the Roman interpretation, Hercules, he was half god, son of Zeus, half god, half man, and he was a wrecking machine.
Yes, exactly. And when this race died, I mean, they were half spirit creatures as well, or at least influenced by the spiritual realm in a biological way. Well, that energy did not dissipate. It retained much of its intelligence. And that's where you get many of these spirit beings today, which are controlled by the fallen angels, by the devils. Okay, stages of inhuman involvement. Infestation. Now this is where you as paranormal investigators may experience some of this realm. Infestation, seeming typical haunting. In the start it seems very much like a typical human haunt. But then you get into the oppression stage. Escalation of disturbing phenomena and isolation of individuals. Certain individuals will be targeted, and the spirit's going to play upon them, play upon their weaknesses. Okay? And then, this is rare now that it'll go to this stage, but if unchecked, could sometimes lead to possession. Extremely, extremely rare. Where a person's will, because a demon cannot just jump into a person. Believe me, if they could, they would do this. They would do this. But it's very difficult. God has given us an extremely strong will. There's a lot of natural protection as well. A demon cannot simply enter a person. There has to be a process where they have to integrate themselves with that person's psyche. Again, that could begin with something as simple as a Ouija board. But they have to break that person's will down until that person literally gives them permission, whether it's willing or not. They have to give them permission to enter.
And Keith and I, while we say it's rare, Keith and I have been involved in 2 legitimate cases of demonic possession, where the person's psyche was taken over by an invading entity.
Now, the deliverance and exorcism, discernment. There's the discernment. Some people have the gift of discernment. As you get into this work, and we refer to it as the work, you will develop more of this inclination for discerning whether a spirit is malicious or positive. And usually you'll know after a while. It will announce itself. It's a feeling you get where you know it's an oppressive feeling. You know you're in danger. It's second nature. I know we have some clergy with us here as well. And hello, Tracy. Glad to have you with us from Ohio. And as you get into this work, you will experience this more and more. Some people have the spiritual gift of discernment, which St. Paul spoke about, where they will be able to tell how many spirits are there and what their intent is, what their purpose is, what their nature is. Okay, enlisting the help of the clergy. Whenever possible, we try to enlist the help of the clergy. I myself am non-denominational clergy at this time. But we also use clergy as much as possible. That's not always possible. In fact, some people have gone through the gamut. They've tried to get help from clergy, and they've been denied for one reason or another. And clergy, they're human, and sometimes they're just not prepared to deal with the danger or the controversy. So that's why we're often called in where the clergy has refused to come in. But we also have our own specialized clergy that we work with as well. Okay, home cleansing and blessing. This is what Sandra and I often do, and of course we've worked with our friends at N.E.A.R and many other groups. We've gone to houses and performed home deliverance and a cleansing or a blessing. Home cleansing or blessing is where you go from room to room and you're filling it with positive energy. It's not necessarily that you're challenging the spirit directly. What you're doing is trying to introduce positive energy into a room where there may have been some negative energy there. We're just trying to bring white light and spirituality into this room, and hopefully angelic power as well. The difference between deliverance and an exorcism. Now, an exorcism, of course, to perform that, the necessity to perform an exorcism is also very rare. It's where, of course, the ritual, the casting out ritual is set over a person. That's an exorcism until this spirit, the invading spirit, is driven out. A deliverance is you're trying to remove the demonic element from that person and from that house. Through blessings, through beginning with a house blessing, this is where you address the situation specifically and you cast the demonic spirit out. But you don't just cast it out, of course you want to bring something positive in. So we rather than concentrating on casting something malevolent out, we try to concentrate on we're doing a house cleansing and we're bringing something positive in. We're praying for angelic protection. And a lot of what we do is sitting down and counseling the family, because there is often something they need to change in their own lives that may have been attracting this kind of spirit in the first place, and there are ways they can protect themselves, of course, so that's what we do. Angelic protection, of course, as I just mentioned, to replace the infestation, we find that very, very important. We always pray for angelic protection to be with us. Of course, there's the prayer of St. Michael. Many use that. We do on occasion. And we always ask for angelic personages. I always say, may a warrior angel, because it's a specific role, a warrior angel, a holy warrior angel wielding a flaming sword of righteousness be posted in this room, we ask through God's grace, so that nothing unholy will be allowed to re-enter this room or attack the family involved.
That's a powerful reassurance.
It is, it really is.
Did you want to show some deliverance footage, or do
Yes.
you want to, I don't know if you want to save more time for EVPs and such.
Do we have, let me ask you, would it be easy to call up that, our cache of EVPs, the human scream? Because that's a sound that I believe might be a
Well,
demonic.
that is part of this.
Okay,
Yeah,
if you've got that.
But
Yeah,
not
I
on
would,
this page.
I would
On
like
this
to
page
show
we
some
have
footage.
deliverance.
Would you like?
God who has power to give life after death and rest after work. Because there is no other God than thee. There can be no other. For thou art the creator of all things, visible and invisible, of whose reign there shall be no end. We humbly prostrate ourselves before thy glorious majesty, and we beseech thee to deliver us by thy power from the tyranny of the infernal spirits, from their snares, their lies, and their furious wickedness. Deign, O Lord, to grant us thy powerful protection, and to keep us safe and sound. We beseech thee through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Lord, you have said, I leave you peace, my peace I give you. Grant that through the intercession of the Virgin Mary, we may be liberated from every evil spell and enjoy your peace always. In the name of Christ, our Lord. Amen. Amen. They are found and believing from coming back to torment George or anyone who is close to him. We, on this mission this evening, are under his protection as well. In his name, let nothing unholy be allowed to follow us, torment us. Only that which is righteous and holy and protected is of the God's glory. We ask that the mighty, holy, warring angel of God, wielding a flaming sword of righteousness, be by George's side always. Anything unholy be cast out of him and away from him, never allowed to return. Any deception be thwarted. Any manipulation of his mind or body be thwarted. And that he be allowed to rest, sleep in peace, and wait refreshed. In your holy name, Lord. Holy Spirit.
Very placid scene compared to some we've experienced.
Yes, and I want to reiterate that that is not an actual exorcism, that is the deliverance, but there is the possibility. That's why you were positioned in ways that if something happens, we're ready, because there is the slight chance that when you're doing a deliverance session and a demon wants to fight, it's called transitory possession. We'll enter the person and give one last-ditch effort of a fight before it leaves. The family was being very, very much pressed. This woman does have a face. We just blanked it out for identification purposes, but yes. But that's, it recognized Kristen Gartland there. And just want to play a couple of quick EVPs from that.
This is actually a would-be ghost hunter's case, but it was filmed in a condo. We did it in
Filmed in a condo.
condo. Yeah, and thank you. The landlords at the last minute decided that they didn't want this film for the show, so we wound up doing it outside of the show. And that is Kristen Garland in the background there, Mike Dion's leg. This particular EVP, what happened was there was seemed to be a ruckus outside of, I was standing with the clients in the kitchen, living room area, and there seemed to be some ruckus, something to do with the door opening and closing. Mike, Keith, and Kristen left the room, and I was with the clients. They were investigating the door that was opening and closing. And while I was there fiddling with the video equipment, the clients insisted that there was an entity inside the room. Now, she had actually been scratched. A scratch had appeared on her cheek, and the children were not there that night, but they had been attacked as well. So my feeling was, you know, something needs to be done. So I actually did a little bit of provocation myself.
She said, put down, it says put down, and then it's mocking her, and then, I don't really need the mic.
We're not hooked up to the sound system here.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, but then she says, and nullified, and he goes, nullified.
Okay. Do you want to do just one of the screens?
There you go.
Okay. This is actually at the home of Kristen Garland, one of the first apartments back when we first knew her.
That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to make any difference.
And while we were doing the house blessing, we actually heard a scream, something blood-curdling sound as we were doing the front door, came out of the air. And that is rare, but it has happened to us a couple of times. So something you might want to be...
Let's do that again. I'm going to
Sure.
try to
Augment
boost
that
it up a
sound.
little bit. Although this one's a little bit louder.
Why do we consider that demonic? Because it starts off as, well, it's during the provocation when Keith is intoning
It
the
reacted to
police.
religious provocation.
Reacted to religious provocation, number one. The growl, or the scream, well, it starts out sounding like an animalistic growl. Then it morphs into a human scream and one in utter despair.
Did you hear it with your ears, Joe?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, that's rare.
So
Sometimes
that's
you do.
technically not an EVP because we did hear it while it was going on. Okay, let's just play Smokers. Okay, this is a house where it was a demonic infestation in Brooklyn, New York, and Brian was with us, and they'd been talking about saging the place, and apparently the spirit took exception to that and said smokers, almost began trying to blow up the smoke itself. It's made a sound
That's
like
when
that.
you burn a sprig
Hot.
of sage to bless the house.
And says hot, yes.
Carol, can I?
Yep.
So you can actually hear it say smokers and then trying to blow smoke and say hot. They do have personalities. They do have very distinct personalities.
Personality survive.
Yeah.
Carl,
So,
did you want to talk about Beatrice? Do we have time for that?
all right, very quickly. Yes, we'll talk about.
Well, that's where the name of a missing person, to be very brief with this story, with our remaining minutes. In Brooklyn, New York, we visited a house that turned out to be probably a demonic haunting with some elements of a spiritual haunting as well. And EVP identified a missing person. We were sitting around speaking with the clients in the kitchen, so there's noisy background conversation, and you can clearly hear the name Beatrice. Well, when we got back our results, we analyzed the tape, we mentioned the name Beatrice, and the homeowner didn't know, and her cousin who had grown up in that house didn't know about the name Beatrice. So the homeowner's cousin contacted her mother, who had also lived in that house for a time, and said, is there any significance to the name Beatrice? Her mother, who was living in Texas then, became very agitated and said, who's been talking to you about that? And it turned out that Beatrice was the grandfather's, the original owner of that house. That was his mistress, and she disappeared. She was last seen in that house. That much is confirmed. Allegedly, she was murdered. She disappeared. And nobody who was investigating the house and the family members there at the time did not know of the name Beatrice. Did you hear that? I was right in the conversation.
Yeah, and that's another point. Often, and perhaps Karen, you've experienced this too. Often, when it's just a normal conversation, you're not asking questions of a spirit entity. It's just a normal conversation or an interview with the family. A spirit will chime in and just come out. Yes, exactly. A spirit will just come in. Well, I think that's about all we have time for.
I'd really like to share with you a story of a very horrendous, a true story that took place in 1980 of an exorcism in which Keith and I were involved. But unfortunately, we don't have any time for that, so I'll take you outside the lobby. I do. I was only kidding, but I do have that story, actually. Okay, we have 3 minutes, according to Matt. Well, in 1980, we were called in to assist with a possession because they knew we were investigating paranormal occurrences. Back then, it wasn't called paranormal, it was always called parapsychology. But this had the hallmarks of a demonic case. It involved a young boy, the classic disturbed adolescent, who had not had any episodes before this. Supposedly, he had picked this entity up by walking through a cemetery. At least that was what was suspected. He was having episodes. The family member invited me to stay overnight, and of course, I had the nerve to do it. I said, yeah, okay, I'll stay over and I'll observe. It was a very, very unsettling experience because at around 1 in the morning, I was just getting to sleep. All of a sudden we heard this horrific screaming. So I stumbled out of the bed and fumbled for the light switch, and somebody else turned on the light in the adjacent room. This 14-year-old boy, was he 13 or 14 at the time? He had turned 14. He came spinning out of his bedroom, like spinning around like a top, in a way that really couldn't be explained by accelerated motor performance. His body was spinning around on the floor, careening into the walls at almost a blurring speed. And then he jumped up on a sofa and jumped up and down with this harsh demonic laugh. Now I tried to restrain him. I was my typical 200 pounds. He was a 14-year-old boy, but he bent my arms right back. And so it was decided on partly my recommendation that we should conduct an exorcism, and clergy was involved in this. These were Hispanic people of Hispanic origin, Puerto Rican and Dominican, so they were brought up in a culture that embraces the belief in spiritualism and possession, which was certainly an influence in this case. But this boy was, he was very much English speaking. He was an American of Puerto Rican heritage, and when we started the exorcism, to put it briefly, it was over in a house in Messer Street in Providence, Rhode Island. We were all seated in a semicircle. I was in the center place. When the exorcism began, and the boy was sitting there rather nervous but not particularly agitated, I don't know how to describe what happened then, except that something changed in the air. It got heavy. Then the floor shook, visibly and audibly. We could feel that, as if a truck was going by, but it wasn't, or an earth tremor. The floor shook. Then just my chair, with me in it, went all the way back across the room, against the wall. And at first, when something like that happens, there's a process that goes in your mind as you analyze it. It took me about half a second to grasp what was happening. Nobody was pulling me back. And then literally all hell broke loose. The boy fell on the floor, was writhing, foaming at the mouth, tearing at his clothes and at other people's clothes. And we tried to restrain him, and I was in charge of holding him down, actually. And at one point during this session... You and me both. Yeah, we both were. So he had about 400 pounds of twin brothers on him. And at one point, I felt this uncharacteristic rush of anxiety. And I felt a tingling in the base of my skull, in the ganglia area, the mons area of the brain. That's, by tradition, an entry point for spirits. I just felt this anxiety, tension, misery. I fought it away. I just concentrated on my own sense of self, my own identity. And then it pulled out of me. It felt like a vacuum in the back of my head. It was a palpable sensation. Apparently it went into a girl situated on the other side of the room, because she immediately, and Keith was witness to this, she immediately started to scream and pull on her hair. So, but it was apparently a successful exorcism. He was only bothered by this entity once afterwards, when he and his family were driving by a church, perhaps a month later, and he started to scream and fit. But after that, he was better. Of course, this was back in 1980. I didn't have a camcorder, and if I brought a tape recorder, I don't know where it is, where that recorder is.
You probably would have
now
smashed it anyway. It was a very violent situation.
Yeah. Nowadays, we'd have a 3-chip camera set up, and a DVR system, and tape recorders positioned around the house, as well as that room.
Wow.
But that pretty much wraps it up for us.
That wraps it up for us.
We've always
have
got
one more slide.
We have one more slide?
One more slide.
Okay.
Well, actually, we have this too, but this is another possession case that Keith and I were involved with. Carl wasn't. We don't have time for the footage with that either. But
But that was
after
an
this,
interesting case.
yeah, that was an interesting case that almost made it to Ghost Hunters. But the following slide, the last slide that we have is somewhat disturbing. And,
Well, you see, Sandra,
we don't have any.
Sandra's being attacked by a rare aquamarine attack
Oh,
orb.
and this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right on the back of her neck.
All right, well, we're going to show the last picture, and
Yes, it's
not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, so we don't have any children, so I guess we're good. We're, it's a possible demonic photo, so just brace yourself. Demonic? I don't know. Any opinions?
Demonic or Star Wars? You be the judge. I want to thank Brian Harnois for allowing us to use that picture. And I want to conclude by saying that faith is everything, knowledge is power. As horrific as a demonic haunt or situation can be, none of us have to live in fear. And I want to God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Definitely want to thank the Johnsons.
Anything involving animals. You guys probably all know I'm a certified veterinary technician. I work with animals all day long, get peed on, pooped on, pick up all kinds of gross stuff. But it's very meaningful to me, and I work in an emergency room with animals. I see a lot of death, I see a lot of pain and suffering and dying, and I see a lot of spirits go from this world into wherever they're going. So it's very important to me when I hear about an animal haunting or an animal apparition to try to document that, because it's been my mission, and it's becoming even more pronounced now that I've been talking to Keith, to try to find out whether spirits of animals continue on into the afterlife. So that's a really important thing to me.
Do you have any questions? We only have a few minutes, but we'll take any questions that you have.
When does your book come out? You guys,
We've talked about that.
We've talked about that, actually.
I'm interviewing ghostwriters.
Yeah. We're here all week, folks.
Try the veal.
I hope we make a book. We all have had our own experiences in terms of our journeys in paranormal investigations and research and our own theories. I hope it does happen sometime in the near future, so hopefully soon.
that'd be cool.
I guess I'm the procrastinator of the group, though.
I'm right behind
I'll
you.
give it my part in 7 or 8 years. Just kidding.
Any other questions?
Yes, well, first of all, I want to say that this thoroughness, this professionalism, and this integrity, this basic integrity, I think this is the future of paranormal investigation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I also have a question.
Yes.
You are analytic, you're very scientific. Would you ever consider employing a psychic? Somebody that is a sensitive? That's a very subjective experience, so I wondered if you'd ever use
I think
a psychic.
we'd all have separate answers, so let's, Paula?
I think that psychics are very interesting, and I think I drive them crazy because I ask them about 140 questions within the first 5 minutes that I meet them. It's very rarely that I don't know, put much merit in what they're saying, if at all, and that's no offense to any psychics. But I mean, I'm trained as a scientist, a research scientist every day, so it's kind of hard to, I don't know, get in the mindset that that's believable. I would want to use them, no, that was me. I'd want to use them almost as another gauge or a tool that, I mean, let's characterize what's going on. If I'm,
Data point.
another data point, exactly. If I'm seeing something or experiencing something or think something's going on, and even my gauges might be telling me there might be something there, it'd be interesting to see what that person said, especially leading up to it, because once everybody's already thinking something's going on, they might be saying what you expect. But let's see what they say before it happens. So yeah, maybe another data point, but I find them interesting and I'm very nice to them, but I think it's amazing if it's true, just like anything paranormal, but I have a hard time believing all of it,
It's not really a yes or no response anyway.
Right. I'm probably more skeptical than most people you meet in the field, so I'm the same way about psychics, insensitives and all all of that. Although I do watch Ghost Whisperers, that's pretty awesome.
I'm trained as an engineer, I'm a civil and environmental engineer, and I also think scientifically. However, I've probably seen about 60 psychics in my life, and I would say less than 1% have been somewhat accurate. I have met a couple very gifted, what I consider real psychics. And so yeah, my answer would be yes, absolutely, because it would be another way to determine if the data we're collecting on an investigation has any merit. You know, comparing different alternatives on an investigation, whether it's dowsing rods or a sensitive or a psychic. But I believe that there are gifted psychics out there, and if I met one that I absolutely believed in 100%, we can't believe really in anything 100%, so let me rephrase that. If I had trust in a person who is gifted in the psychic sense, then I would have them go on an investigation.
My turn? I think my take on it would be probably that, you know, psychics many times are talking to us, they're channeling someone from the afterlife. And culturally, again, there are so many different takes on the afterlife. You know, there's cultures that believe you better enjoy it while it's here because the afterlife kind of sucks. There's, you know, cultures that believe that, you know, you work hard and you do the right thing here and you go on to a better life. And then there's other people, you know, that believe that, you know, when you die, your life stops, your energy stops, and there's nothing afterwards. So employing a psychic, I think, is an interesting concept because, you know, they're filtering information from what they perceive as the beyond. And I think that anytime you can get information, you know, it can help in your investigation. It's a supplemental tool. And I don't think you should be influenced by it, but I think anybody's input, as we talked about before, whether you're, you know, a psychic, a hardcore investigator, a skeptic, it's a useful tool, and it's pieces of a puzzle that you fit together. And you don't take somebody's word for it right off the bat, but it's something that contributes to the whole part of your investigation.
So I guess we're taking applications for a psychic
Yes.
now. Psychic here.